Andy Murray and Serena Williams did something extraordinary this week. They actually either talked about their emotions publicly or they showed them. I'm going to be discussing that and everything around it next. Hi everyone, Anne-Marie here, bringing you some of the big news stories that are happening in the sports world, but going a bit deeper into the headlines. And there are two players that have definitely made the headlines this week for different reasons, but for the same point. And I'm talking about Andy Murray and Serena Williams. So let's start off with Andy Murray, the comeback of Andy Murray. You probably saw him at Queen's and at Eastbourne during the grass court season. I would say he had the better game at Queen's when he was playing Nick Kyrgios. Eastbourne, it wasn't quite working, but definitely at Queen's you could start to see Andy Murray upping his level little by little, and it was basically an introduction back to the Murray swagger. Now we're into the hard court season. It means moving over to North America, where there's a whole load of different tournaments taking place before the US Open. I have to say there was a lot of questions in the media and publicly about whether Andy Murray was ever going to come back to tennis. I never believed that for a second. I always thought in my mind he will give it a go because he loves it, and I couldn't see him retiring from the game even though his body wasn't in the place that it was going to be. And I'm so pleased to see him back. And as I mentioned, it's now hard court season and there are a number of pre-hard court matches taking place around North America before the big one of the US Open at the end of August. So let's talk about Washington, where Andy Murray played, and it was definitely Andy Murray of old. You saw him defending, you saw him chasing, you saw him making shots, you saw him roaring at the crowd, muttering to himself sometimes, which I personally don't like, but that's Murray and that's how he plays it. And it was fantastic to see him back on a court playing competitively. So here's the thing, which what happened at the Washington Open was that Murray had to play 3 very long matches, and the third match, where he played a chap by the name of Marius Copil, was the one that made the headlines the most for 2 reasons. Number one, the fact that this match didn't start until midnight Washington time and finished at 3 a.m. in the morning. And one could argue about the scheduling. They were hampered by the weather as well. But there has to be questions that need to be asked about matches that start at midnight and not finishing until 3 a.m. in the morning. But the wider point, the bigger point, was on the conclusion of that match that had gone on for 3 hours. That Murray, on the completion of that match, and when he thanked the crowd and acknowledged the crowd, he sat back down in his chair and literally sobbed into his towel. And I personally found it very distressing to watch. I felt for him. I really just wanted to reach through the screen and just give him this massive hug, really, because I could feel it. I could feel his distress. I could feel the overspill of emotion from himself, the despair of I've never played tennis professionally. I don't know what it's like to be out there, be under public scrutiny, and your body not reacting the way that you want it to be. You've been at the top for a long time and an injury has hampered your progress. And there was probably the question whether or not he would ever return to play competitively. And he made it through to the third round of Washington, played for 3 hours and literally just cried. And you could hear the sobbing, the deep breaths from his chest. And as I mentioned, I felt very uncomfortable, not in the fact that I felt sorry for him or I felt pity for him. It was just that you just wanted to comfort him, really. And it was just the level of emotion, one of the most powerful moments I've ever seen in sport. Very much discussion at the moment around mental health and well-being and wellness, and it was refreshing. However distressing it was to see, it was refreshing to see a man crying, heaving sobs into his towel and letting people see the emotion and see the effort and probably see the despair hearing the despair in his voice as he was crying. You could hear the sobs of what it takes to be Andy Murray, the level of sacrifice and hours of training and rehab. And as I said, sometimes you hear in these conversations, you just got to man up, or just take it and just do whatever. It doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter, actually. And it was, as painful as it was to watch, it was just refreshing to see somebody who was very open with his emotions. In the masculine world of sport, he didn't man up, he owned it, and he owned those feelings. And the clip went viral on social media and it also made the news as well. Not only do we have the men's matches happening in North America, you also have the WTA, the women's matches happening as well. And the first one was at San Jose in the States, and Serena Williams was paired up with Britain's JoHanna Konta. And I really thought that Serena Williams would literally just walk through this one quite easily. And I was utterly surprised to see the scoreline when I woke up in the morning, to see it as 6-love, 6-1 to the British number one's favour. So congratulations to Jo Konta, fantastic win for her, and it did help her propel her on into the tournament. The talking point was of course about Serena, and she also, after the loss at San Jose, withdrew from another tournament afterwards, and then she posted something very poignant on Instagram, and it links into the whole talk about mental health, about well-being and wellness. And she was talking about how motherhood isn't easy. Now, we all know Serena Williams is an absolute warrior. She is a beast. She knows how to intimidate opponents. She's a Grand Slam winner, multiple tour titles winner, a doubles winner as well, wants and is probably one of the greatest athletes in the world. And she was very open in her Instagram post about worrying about being a mother, about not spending enough time with her daughter because she's training, and talking about her emotions, and how it's been explained to her that in the States they call it postpartum, we call it postnatal here in the UK, about how to deal with those emotions and feelings after giving birth. Remember, this is a woman who nearly died in childbirth and then was playing for a Grand Slam title, 8 months later. It's a phenomenal story, but it was also a story that's very real about learning how to manage those emotions of feeling the blues, if you like. And she's saying that she's learning the process. She worries about not being a good enough mother. I'm not a mother myself, but I cannot imagine what that is like when you have that thought in your head, just literally just weighing you down on your shoulders. For me, the point I want to make about these two players, for Andy Murray and for Serena Williams, it takes real bravery for somebody who's already in the public eye anyway to come out in the public and say, look, I have a weakness, or show that they have a weakness, but they show how they cope with it and that they're aware of it. And they're being very open about how they feel, especially in the public eye, especially in this day and age. In Serena's case, there is that difficulty of the trade-off, wanting to work, but also wants to be a mum, and finding the balance in that. And that is the same right across the board, whoever you are. And also for dads as well, working dads who also want to spend time with their children. It's a problem in society in itself. If you want to call it a problem, it's a challenge. Let's call it that. Finding that balance between being a parent and also working. In Andy Murray's case, him showing his emotions just shows you how much it means to him, how much he loves playing, how much he loves the game, and potentially thinking that he may not have ever stepped on a court again. The point is, we've got to be kinder to ourselves, haven't we? In today's society, we have to be kind and not be so hard on ourselves. And in all honesty, these players have done us a favour by just being honest. As ever, thanks for watching. If you like what you see or hear, please give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe as well. I'll be back soon bringing you more sports news stories that are making the headlines, but just going a little bit deeper past the headlines. Take care, and I'll see you soon.